And record it in real. Oh, I think we're back.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right. It
All right.
worked.
Okay. Good. Good. This is all
Magic.
new. This is the first time I've ever done this. So anyway, we're doing all right so far. Okay.
Yeah,
So
this is the second time I've done this, but what I do after the videos is I think I'm going to put them on YouTube because I think that people are really enjoying the kind of photo nerd chat, and I'm sure they'll be have a a wider excuse me, a wider audience on YouTube, and people can kind of watch them whenever they get a minute and learn.
yeah.
And
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
yeah,
Sounds good.
so
Yeah.
we'll work that out.
All right.
Um,
Good. Yeah.
so yeah, okay, so it was we're talking what was the first hip hop group that you photographed? What year was it?
The first was 82, I think it was, which was Africa Bambaataa came over to London with the Rocksteady crew, Double Dutch Skippers, Dondi, got Futura 2000. It's a whole bunch of
Yeah.
a bit of everything. Grand Mixer DST or Grandmaster DST, Fab Five Freddy. So it's the whole sort of package. It was like a sort of the old soul reviews, and so they had a big backdrop, and Bambata, while sort of Bambata was performing, all the graffiti artists were like doing basically graffiti in the backdrop. So by the end of the show, the whole backdrop was like a massive of graffiti. Anyway, which was amazing for me. It was an amazing experience. I'd seen a couple of break dancers in New York the year before, and that was my first introduction to it, really. But that was the first live show, and my friend Jeanette Beckman, she was at the same show as well. So we
Wow.
didn't realise at the time, but I saw a picture of her in one of my in, I saw her in one of my photographs anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was early. I think that was the first big hip hop show to come to England, and then Grandmaster Flash came over later that year, and then more and more people started sort of coming. I think there was a bit of a gap, and then it was. I remember shooting Grandmaster Melly Mel, and then mid 80s. That was when more people started coming, and there was again sort of big, or pretty big sort of packages. Of it wouldn't. I guess they probably didn't think they could sort of fill out a whole, with one act. So you'd have like Beastie Boys with Run DMC,
Yeah.
and Public Enemy played Eric B. There was a whole bunch that came. Houdini played with Run DMC and LL Cool J. So it was great. They'd all do like 20 minutes or half an
Yeah.
hour at the most. But they were great shows. It was a great introduction to hip hop for me. Because you'd get to see three or four acts, all in one night. Anyway, so
Well,
I
you
managed
were
to miss
obviously
the Beastie Boys, but still.
you were shooting reggae before hip hop came to London, so obviously you were aware of hip hop when it started to grow and started to gestate, I guess, or become a thing. Were a lot of the publications back then looking for images of these artists, or were they more focused on something else? Because I talked to Jeanette in the past, and she said that she got to photograph so many cool people a lot of times because she was a newer photographer, and it wasn't really what the magazines were interested in. They were like, oh, just
Yeah,
go shoot the punk kids.
yeah. Hip hop wasn't NME didn't like hip hop. They weren't into hip hop at all. And even the Black Echoes, who I was doing mainly the black music stuff for, they were more traditional soul and funk stuff, and they weren't really into hip hop until they were a bit slow off the mark. But there were little like hip hop fanzines beginning to sort of pop up. So I was shooting for them mainly, you know, for free. I mean, it was just like, it was, well, someone to do, you know, someone to shoot that would be interesting, you know. So, but there was like Hip Hop Connection, and there was a bunch of little ones that would come out once a month or something. But no, hip hop wasn't big because it wasn't getting airplay. It started becoming big on all in England, particularly in London. There's lots of pirate radio stations, which like illegal radio stations that still exist now, and
Yeah.
they're basically financed by sort of DJs wanting to get gigs, so they'll show, you know, what records they've got and promote their club nights, you know. So they'll be playing music all night, all through the day as well. And that's where hip hop was really getting played, and same
Yeah.
with house music and everything later on. You know, it was more those illegal stations. That's where Tim Westwood got his breaks, and you know, and other sort of bigger DJs later along, you know, sort of started up in the hip hop in the pirate radio station world anyway, you know. So so yeah, more often than not, I mean, probably me and Jeanette were probably the only two at that first show, the only two photographers, I think. And you know, most often I would be the only photographer. She moved to New York, and I was probably the only photographer shooting quite a lot of them. And then Normski came along and a few others, you know. But those early days, there weren't many people shooting hip hop at all, you know.
Who
So,
did you
which is
shoot the
great for
Public
me.
Enemy
You know.
photos?
Pardon?
I'm sorry?
No, I was saying it was great for me if, you know, if there's no other
Yeah,
photographer around, you know. But
you're the guy.
well, you know, just by chance, yeah. But sorry, what you were saying, Public Enemy.
Yeah, who did you shoot those photos for, your Public Enemy photos from 1987?
I think that was probably Black Echo. I would think that was Black Echoes. It was around that time. Would have
Yeah.
been anyway. So that was, might have been. I don't think it was NME. I think it was Echoes anyway. So let me try to find some of them for you.
Okay.
Um, here we go. Yeah, so that was their first time they ever came to London, 1987, and it was really fun. I was the first photographer to photograph them that day, and they'd just arrived in London like the night before, and they came up to me and said, are there any McDonald's? We haven't seen any McDonald's. We came in from like Heathrow Airport and we didn't see a single McDonald's. And it was like, you know, they were like really worried that they were like not going to be able to eat, I guess. You know, it was like, don't worry, there is a McDonald's. You know, there's probably about 3 in London at the time, but they were good. I mean, that there's a couple here. What have I got? That's one. It's a bit different to that one we used on the flight. Same thing. So it was early. It was like 11 in the morning or something, and
Wow.
which, you know, that's early for me, and I'm sure it was early for them, you know. But so it was like foggy. It was like a real fog, and it's, you know, London isn't normally foggy, but it was like a real foggy morning, and there were these little old ladies like walking their dogs in Hyde Park, and they're sort of Public Enemy in their, you know, full army fatigues, and they're doing like Black Power signs and everything, and there's all these, you know, little old ladies walking around like, you know, what the hell? And, you know, guys with sort of huge sneakers on with no laces, and, you know, it wasn't it wasn't something you would see in London at that time anyway at all,
And
you know.
stuff like that was scarier back then. Like the kind of things that musicians did had a bigger impact because there wasn't social media and, like, bands like Motley Crue were really scary to the establishment back then.
Right,
So,
yeah, yeah. No, I'm sure, I mean, because again, because there wasn't any internet, and so if you didn't know someone's music,
yeah,
often I'd get asked to do the shoot, the day before. It's
yeah,
like, can you go and shoot whoever, Public Enemy? I might not have known. I knew who Public Enemy were, but I mean, it was, often you wouldn't, and it would
yeah.
be like you just go along, and it's like, well, I don't know. Bad Brains, that was another one. Like, someone said, "Oh, can you shoot Bad Brains?" It's like, I've not. Who the hell? I've never heard of them. So I went along, and I didn't know whether they were reggae. It's like Rastas or punk. It's like, what the hell? I've no idea who they were or what. But I mean, they were great. We were talking about reggae, but I only found out afterwards that I realised they weren't a reggae band, but
Yeah.
it was only after shooting them that it's like, oh God! I went to a gig, I saw them play. It's like, oh my God! It's like I couldn't stand it, to be honest. But,
Really? Why not?
oh, it just wasn't my sort of. I mean, I used to like sort of punk and stuff, but it was late. It was later then. I'd moved on, I guess. But everyone to their own. I didn't like the Cramps when I saw the Cramps either. So I mean, it's like all these bands you were meant to like, that I didn't.
Well, it was like new punk to you. That was new to you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You like
But it
the
was a
older
bit
stuff.
later. Yeah, yeah. At the time, it seemed sort of like dated. To me, it seemed dated.
Yeah.
But I mean, all these home
Pe-
truths I shouldn't be saying.
People still do that in punk, though. Everything was better back in the day in punk. It always will be. And
Right, yeah,
you just
yeah.
draw the line wherever you want.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, when I was shooting it, it was already like past it, because it was like
Yeah.
1978, and people were like, oh God, I never saw the Sex Pistols. I saw the Clash, but I'd shot the Clash a few times, but
Yeah.
it's like, oh, what, you didn't shoot the Pistols, so yeah, you're always too late or
Too early
this,
or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah.
Well,
So,
so my guess would be that you weren't making a lot of money back then.
no,
Um,
no, not at all.
so did you ever, so I would always supplement my personal work with I did a lot of catalog photos and a lot of very, very commercial stuff to bring in
Right, yeah,
the cheese, so to speak.
right,
Did
yeah.
you ever aspire to get the covers of the magazines to make the big bucks, to do commercial, maybe advertising work? I mean, my guess is back then the way that was viewed was different than it right now. Nowadays, photographers kind of do everything, but maybe
Right,
back then it was
yeah.
different.
Yeah, no, I guess I never made the big bucks. I was shooting, I mean, I guess I was doing quantity,
Yeah.
uh, so, not trying to cut down on the quality, but I was, so I'd shoot, like a sometimes sometimes I'd do 2 or 3 gigs a night,
Oh my God.
or sort of try and shoot at least 2 or 3 bands a week, one way or the other, portraits and stuff. So and then I mean, even like with all the main Fleet Street newspapers, the Guardian, the Telegraph, the Times, they never paid anything much either, still don't, and it's the same when I moved to New York. I started working for the New York Times, and
Oh wow.
which was good. I mean, I did a lot of work for them for about 15 years, but they were paying nothing. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
$200 a job, 150 bucks when I started, and it was 15 years later, they're paying 200
It's
bucks a
probably the
job.
same now or
Yeah,
similar.
yeah, it is. It is. I know it is actually.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so it's not a way to make a fortune, but I guess I was lucky. So I started really because I was shooting a lot of reggae. That was the main thing where I started doing record sleeves for record companies, and So I ended up, that was where there was more money. Now, it wasn't a lot, and a lot of them got reused or repackaged, or people would, you know, put them on flyers. You know, they'd
Yeah.
appear everywhere. You know, but so that was where I was making a bit more money than just the, you know, the music papers by doing record sleeves for pretty much all reggae, a bit of hip hop, a bit later, but reggae was the main thing. I think I've done about 400, 300 or 400 reggae sleeves over the
Whoa.
years. You know, probably
I mean, is it
half of them are paid. You know, but it might be
is it just
more. I don't know.
is
Yeah, go on.
reggae a severely underdocumented type of music? It seems like it. Like whereas
What in photographically, you mean? Or
yeah. Yeah.
there's a few. There's a few like quite legendary reggae photographers,
Hmm.
but a lot of them work for specific record companies. So
Yeah.
a lot of them did a lot of work for Island Records or Virgin in its heyday. So they, you know, got some great images, but they weren't necessarily shooting the, you know, the little sort of
Right.
smaller acts or the people that would only do a few you know, a few singles and then vanish, you know. So, so you know, that was something I've always loved reggae. So I was always shooting just for myself, and you know, and if people then ended up using them, you know, that was great, you know. Or people would come to me directly, you know, for pictures. So. So I would shoot. I mean, I shot like Dennis Brown a lot. A few, sometimes for record companies, other times, you know, he'd ask me to do some, you know, do some pictures for him. So,
Yeah.
but again, quite a lot of those for the music papers, and then they might have got used, you know, later for record sleeves and stuff. So, you know, if someone says, "Oh, you know, have you got any photos of Gregory Isaacs or, you know, or Bob Marley or whatever," then I can sell them on, you know, after they've
Yeah.
been used. One place can, you know, move them on elsewhere anyway.
Do you have any of those prints handy? Do you have any of your Lee Scratch Perry or Bob Marley prints handy?
Yeah, I've got, where's Bob is around somewhere. Hang on.
Your studio is so neat and tidy.
Neat. No, no, you can't
It
see.
looks tidy.
You can't see that. I've got piles of boxes everywhere. Yeah, here's a bunch of Bob. That's,
Wow.
let's see that.
What year was that?
This is 1980. It was his last show in London before. Oh, this is the one that pays the rent, probably,
Yeah, wow.
um, or has helped pay the rent over the years, anyway.
Yeah.
But all of these were taken. It was at Crystal Palace in South London, and there's a lake in front of the stage. So to get I didn't have a long lens at all. So to get to the front of the stage or near the front of the stage, I waded into the lake. So
Yeah.
all of these photos, I was like chest deep in. You know, literally, it was water was up to about there. I took a
Chest deep.
camera. Yeah, yeah. I took a plastic bag with like 3 rolls of film and the camera, and I sort of walked in. There were loads of people in the water as well. It wasn't just me, you know. And so, but it was really difficult to change a roll of film when you're having to, like, you know, wind the film back and then make sure you don't drop the film and then, you know, put another roll of film in. But again, it was one you could shoot the whole gig. So it was, you know, it helped anyway.
People don't really get to see what goes on behind the scenes, how you capture a photo.
Right,
And
yeah.
I've certainly waded in water to get a photo for sure.
Right. The sad thing was Joe Jackson was on before Bob Marley, and someone found a dead duck in the
Oh,
lake, and they threw it at Joe Jackson, and it hit him in the stomach. It was like, Jesus Christ. He walked off stage, understandably, you know. That's the other one.
Oh, it's beautiful. Look at that light. Like you have such a distinct eye for light. It looks like it's lit professionally. It's
Right.
crazy.
That was just
I mean,
daylight. I mean, it was in the afternoon. This is a bit heavy. This is a bit of a dark print. I normally print it a bit lighter, but
someone commented,
I
"Holy shit."
thought. So
Beautiful.
yeah, no. So I've got quite. It was good. I did well out of that show. That was another. That one's
Oh, it's so beautiful.
that's appeared on quite a few pirated T-shirts and stuff over the years. You know, but you can't do anything about it really. You know, there's not much you can really do. You know, this once a picture gets printed, you know, someone can copy them or whatever. You know, but
Yeah.
you know, that was the only shot I got. That was when he was leaving
Oh,
the gig.
wow.
So he was just getting into the car. So all of them were live. That was the only shot I ever got of it. I never did portraits, unfortunately, of Bob. But so
Were you
yeah,
able to
so
meet
that,
him or no? You
no,
never
I
met
never
him?
did. No, unfortunately not. I wish I had, but you know, I'm sure it would have been a great experience. But no, I
Yeah.
never did. But yeah, Lee Perry, I've shot a few times. I mean, he was great to photograph. You know, I mean, can't go wrong at all. But that was an experience. I realised I did this was photographing him. It was on Halloween, and he was he was doing the song. We were recording. Chris Blackwell is a vampire. It was what
Mm-hmm.
he was recording. He didn't like Chris Blackwell, who ran Island Records, at all. And so we found this broom in or he found a broom in the studio, my professor's studio. So he's like sitting on this broom pretending to be a witch while I photograph him. And he was wearing these big white boots that had God written on the toe. And he took his boot off and he had a picture of Haile Selassie
Yeah.
in his boot, because he said he always wants to have the presence of Haile Selassie sort of touching him at all times, you know. And
Sure.
but no, he's great. I mean, he was great to shoot. But I realised, was doing the shoot, finished the roll of film, went to get another roll, and I didn't have any more film on me. It was like I
Uh,
only had one roll of film. It's
uh,
like, for fuck's sake. So, I mean, I got a lot of nice pictures out of it, but that was like, oh, God, how, you know, that's one of the joys of having digital cameras, is at least you can keep on shooting, you know. But
yeah.
here's one of, hang on, the parrot.
Taking it off the wall. That's
Well,
amazing.
yeah, there's,
Yeah.
that was, you can see that anyway, a bit of,
So you never shot with professional strobes?
I did later, yeah. I did when I started doing like the record album sleeves and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, the sort of reggae stuff. Then I started using strobe. That was when I was using the Hasselblad, and
Yeah.
it's easier to use strobes and
Yeah.
you know, messing around with color gels and stuff. You know, but I preferred shooting out, you know, using available light whenever I
Yeah.
could. But I would. Yeah, I mean, you know, if needs be, I would use strobes. But yeah, I'd always normally shoot like Provia 100, you know, Fuji, and
Yeah.
so you know, for that, a square format is good, you know, for record sleeves and stuff as well.
Yeah.
So Hasselblad was ideal, you know.
Do you think that you've shot like a lot of different types of musicians? Do you feel like they're, hip hop artists, reggae artists, punks, I'm sure indie rock artists and like you said, actors and so on. But do you think there's I guess for musicians in particular, is there common ground amongst all these different types of musicians, or do you see any differences amongst the genres?
Um, I think it's changed a lot now. You know, I mean, I'm not shooting much now the way I used to, and I think it's changed a lot as, you know, social media has got big and digital photography. People are more image conscious now. But I don't know, it's hard to know. I mean, the music I was shooting, I guess it was mainly a bit sort of more, underground in a way. I mean, certainly, like the old soul guys and people I would shoot, they would give you like however long you wanted.
Yeah.
I could shoot for, an hour, and most of them anyway, and they would be totally professional and, sweet as anything. Um, and then as the sort of business began to change and it was more record companies wanted, their own input, then people started getting more precious, and so you would get, suddenly you'd have like time restrictions, and it was like you can only, shoot him for 5 minutes or her
Yeah.
for, sort of one roll of film or something like that. So it would often be, it wouldn't actually be the artist, it would be outside influence, So there was like that, the hip hop show, I had a bunch of pictures in the hip hop show in New York in end of last year, beginning of this year, called Beat Positive, that Getty organised. And I had shots of Biz Markie, Big Daddy Kane, Marley Marl, and MC Shan. And the four of them, I had like half an hour to shoot all four of them. And, they wanted separate portraits of all of them,
Yeah.
So it was like, you've got like 5 minutes to shoot each one. But they were all like really professional, and they knew, all right, you've got 5 minutes. It's in their interest to get good pictures as well, So they were all, you just full on concentrate, bang, bang, get the good shot. And then 5 minutes is up, you've got something, and they've sort of given, they've given you something.
Yeah.
Whereas I think, when you're people now, a lot of the time you have, a very elaborate sessions with, stylists, hair and makeup and everything. It becomes a different thing. There's way too much input. It was just me and Biz
Yeah.
Markie, there wasn't anyone else
Yeah.
involved at all. That no one was telling him what to do. I wouldn't tell people how to pose or anything. I would just let them do whatever they want. I mean, that's something I'd always find. It's much better to get people relaxed. Just like talk to them about themselves, or ask them about what music they listen to, or what their first record was they bought, or simple stuff. But getting them talking about themselves,
Yeah.
that gets them relaxed. You don't want all these other people saying, "Oh yeah, wonderful! Oh, you're beautiful, Biz," or that never worked for me. Anyway,
I photographed Depeche Mode once, and I was thinking like, what could I possibly ask them that has never been asked before in this
right,
situation? So I had like 10 minutes, right? And so I asked them if they liked mayonnaise, and
like
they all
what?
immediately, I said, "Do you guys like mayonnaise?
Right,
Like, what do
oh,
you guys think about mayonnaise?" Right?
right,
And they all
right,
started laughing and, immediately relaxed. It was, yeah. And
yeah,
a lot of them don't like mayonnaise. So
right,
I don't like mayonnaise. So I thought that
right.
was cool.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No. I mean, that's what you want, something to break the ice, don't you?
Yeah.
And just sort of like suddenly people will just sort of be more chilled. I think. I mean,
Right.
it's always good to I try and research people. When I could, if I had the sort of time to find out a bit about people before, before photographing them. But sometimes this is pre-internet and pre-Google,
Oh,
it's like,
yeah.
how the hell, sometimes you couldn't find out, how would you know? Ring friends
Yeah.
or whatever, have you ever heard of such and such, but so, I mean, sometimes it just wasn't, you'd just be
Yeah.
flying blind, so to speak,
So when they ask you to photograph Bad Brains, where are you going to find out who Bad Brains
Yeah,
are?
yeah. Well, at the time, no, I mean, I'm sure I could have if I'd have, but I had no idea. If I asked a few people, no one would have. People I knew probably weren't into Bad Brains,
Yeah.
So, but
So someone asked, how do you go from being a hobbyist to a professional photographer, which I think is it's very different nowadays than it was even when I
Yeah,
was shooting in the 90s. Very different.
yeah,
So what do you
and
think?
yeah. I mean, I think it would be so difficult now. I mean, for me, um, there were lots of music papers and there were lots of things going on, and you had much easier access. I mean,
Yeah.
you could go to a gig, and I went backstage to see, the Stranglers and different people. I never had any access. I just sort of asked if there was any security. There probably wasn't. I'd just go back, knock on the door and just say, "Can I take a few pictures?"
Yeah.
These days that doesn't happen. I mean, you wouldn't get that ease of it at all. So I think it's way more difficult now. I would think it'd be way more difficult, and I don't think there's an easy answer at all to be able to sort of say, other than, I mean, if you have a real passion for it, then obviously, do as much photography as you can. You learn from your mistakes, and
Yeah.
and try and get to know as many people as you can. You know, but
I
it's much harder.
I think, back then you were making 30 to $200 per photo, but your rent was significantly less, I would imagine. The
Oh
rents right now
yeah,
are
yeah,
so high.
yeah.
And
No, exactly. Yeah, yeah. No, I was living in a house where the rent was. I mean, wasn't a great house, but it was a good house, but it was cheap. It was like £20 a week, the rent.
yeah,
So 30 bucks. So you could live cheap, and the main expense really was film and paper. And chemical. Well, I'd mixed all my own chemicals,
yeah,
and I was rolling my own film. Sort of you buy 250 feet or whatever of film and put it, roll it yourself into the canisters because it was cheaper. But
yeah. Bulk
you know,
loading.
yeah, yeah. So
I also did that. That was in my day too.
right, yeah, yeah. But again, I mean, it's a good way of learning, how to feel comfortable in the darkroom. I think, I mean, it's something that a lot of people just don't feel at ease in a black space, basically. But
Yeah.
it was always fine for me.
An art director friend of mine just chimed in and said to do it professionally nowadays, you have to take direction and execute a brief, which is a big difference. I mean, you never had to pitch an idea to NME. You never had to lay out in InDesign a full PDF of what you were thinking of doing and how you were going to execute
Uh,
it. Like, I spend a huge amount of time these days doing just that.
right, yeah, yeah. No, not at all. The only thing to be for me really then was, if I was shooting, normally be shooting 35 mil. If I was shooting for like a cover of the Black Echoes, I used to shoot a lot of their covers. It would be,
Yeah.
well, you got to have, like this one. It's not ideal, but you need room for the logo. So
Yeah.
you've got to have at least sort of a gap there for the logo, and room somewhere for what the stories are going to be inside. So
Yeah.
depending on the magazine, they'd either have the logo there or across the top.
Yeah.
And then with record covers as well, that I never had any brief. The only one, like Shabba Ranks, I shot one of his first albums, Golden Touch. So I thought, well, if they gave you the title of the album, then it would be like, well, I can use that. So I lit it with like orange gels, and
Yeah.
but it's like, well, you need to leave room
Yeah.
above, so the title of the album, so you would position him a bit lower down in the frame, so there's enough room along the top, normally the top for the title of the record or whatever, or down the side.
In my
But
day, we would call them cover tries. So if you were shooting a pretty well-known artist, you would just make sure and leave a lot of room at the top for the masthead for the cover of the magazine, or you would
right,
try
yeah,
it for the table of contents page, in which case you'd leave a ton of room to the right or to the left so they could put the table
yeah,
of contents.
right, exactly, yeah, yeah.
And And
So
sometimes you would get them and it would be extra money, you know?
right, sure, yeah, yeah. And sometimes you forget, and they'd say, how the hell can we use this for a, you know, cover or
Yeah.
whatever, you know. But
Show that James Brown photo again. And there's one other thing I'd like to comment about. Okay, so that was back when all of the lighting at live shows was with the par cans, the old school par cans that were about a zillion degrees. And if you touched one after it was, turned off, you might burn your entire arm off.
oh yeah,
And
yeah.
and par cans are phenomenal for taking photographs. Nowadays, it's all these digital LED lights. It's just a
Oh
complete and total. You lose about 5 stops.
yeah, they're horrible. Yeah, no, these were really good. I mean, this was Hammersmith Odeon, and the lighting
Wow.
was always really good. But yeah, but then you'd get some people like I remember, shooting The Cure, and they just had like blue and
Yeah.
purple lights, and it's like forget it. It's like you can't get anything. Blue light would be worse. Red light as well. All red would just
Well,
like flat. Everything.
you know what's funny is that nowadays with all that crappy digital lighting, I will go to a show and I will shoot 3200 speed film, and somehow that film picks up the LED lights better than other ASAs. So I'll
Oh,
get
really?
these
Right.
really beautiful film photographs of artists nowadays with the cruddy lighting simply by using an old school technique, using high
Oh,
speed
really?
film.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And
No,
they
it's
look different
horrible.
than everyone else's,
Right,
you
sure,
know.
yeah. It's really cold as well, isn't it? That LED light. It always looks really, yeah. Did I ever
They're
get
all.
any portraits of the Cure? No, I didn't. I only shot the Cure live, unfortunately. Not, I never did portraits. Someone just asked.
So do you have any horror stories? Were there ever times that you accidentally developed the film wrong, or you like dropped a roll in the lake, or you lost some negatives, or any kind of maybe you don't want to share, but
There.
do you have any like film and printing kind of horror stories?
I've lost a roll of color pictures of the Congos, a reggae band, and I've been searching
Uh,
like since lockdown for them, and I have a horrible feeling. I had them on my table, and I had a waste paper bin
oh no.
next to the table, and I just have a horrible feeling that it must have dropped in that, and I chucked it out. I'm hoping it's not the case, but I fear the worst for that one. Mainly okay. I mean, sometimes when you've really like overexposed or overdeveloped,
Yeah.
all those Public Enemy uh, pictures a nightmare to print because the negs are so dense. I screwed up exposure wise totally because they were all wearing black and they were black. I overexposed and I overexposed way too much and then I
Yeah.
developed it too much. So they take forever to print. They're a
Yeah.
nightmare. Um, I've got some of those Bob Marley ones. I had a leak in the roof of the house where I lived. I had the dark room in the top floor,
Yeah.
and we were away for a weekend. And I came back, and the roof had leaked, and all the water had come down and hit a load of my film, and they were all in those glassine, that sort of papery, plasticky paper. So they'd all got wet and then dried while I was out.
Oh my
And
God.
so I sort of went along. It's like, what should you do? So I sort of tried pulling the film out, and it just ripped the emulsion off.
Oh my
So
God.
so I've got strips of film where the one end. Thankfully, most of them. Well, I used to shoot a lot of theatre actually. That's another thing, and all of them ended up throwing virtually all of them away because they were the ones that bore the main brunt of it.
A lot
But
of what?
theatre or
Oh,
different
okay.
plays, yeah,
Yeah.
which was all of all the things to damage, they were probably the least important. But
Yeah.
but yeah, so some of the Bob Marley ones were damaged. You couldn't print them, and then there was some of Nana Cherry, some of
Wow.
Sam Rivers, old jazz saxophonist. That I ended up having to chuck some of them, which because it's worth seeing them, and you think like you've got half a picture, or you've got like someone's stomach and no head. So that's probably my worst horror story, I think.
It's
I,
awful. Yeah.
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I I stay up at night wondering where certain negatives are sometimes because I have a lot of stuff in storage and I'm like, I can't sleep because I'm wondering if is it in storage or is it in my cabinet in my home or which storage box it is. It just kind of goes in my mind and I can't sleep,
I
just
know,
wondering.
yeah. I lost some of Anthony Burgess, the author who wrote
Yeah.
Clockwork Orange, and I've, they're gone. I don't know where they could be anywhere, but there's probably more. Hopefully I won't remember
Yeah.
them, but still.
So we'll wind this down. Did you ever embrace digital and what are you doing now? Are you working as a photographer now or do you have other gigs or how does that
I,
work?
I'm shoot. I mean, I still shoot. I shoot digital now. I mean, I still shoot film for my own stuff, and mainly do like my own sort of projects. So I've been doing a few sort of book idea. I've been touting a reggae book for a few years now, really. Which so I sort of do book dummies, trying to sell. It's not, it's the worst possible time to try and
Yeah.
do photo books, really. But I mean, I've shot reggae for like 40 years, so I mean, I've got loads of reggae pictures
Yeah.
you know, the old rootsy days, in particularly. But so doing that, I've got a book of again old New York stuff that not music at all, just sort of New York sort of mainly nightlife anyway.
Yeah.
That I shot. And then, sort of mainly, I mean, I survived mainly by people coming to me asking for prints,
Yeah.
so selling prints and magazines and stuff sort of coming to me. But I'm not shooting the way I used to. I still do, the odd show or people ask me. But, I think it's a younger person's game as well. So, I feel
Yeah.
that, and I'm not into, or I'm not aware of the latest music as much as other people should be, are anyway.
Yeah.
So certainly, things have changed. Now when I'm shooting digital, I've been using the Fuji XT3, which is really good,
Cool.
nice little camera. But and I still shoot black and white film for different projects. I do stuff at cemeteries all around the world. Still,
Yeah.
I did a book on prehistoric standing stones many years ago. I still shoot them.
Yeah.
Black and white film, infrared film, black and white infrared.
I love, yeah, somebody actually, I don't know if you caught it, but somebody asked about, he said that he or she said that they really like your book of monoliths and wanted you
Oh,
to talk a
really? Yeah.
little bit about that. But
Oh,
I
good.
personally think it's cool that you shot them with infrared film. It's like how to take these definably inanimate objects and kind of give them life. Well, let's shoot it with film that sees heat, like,
Right, yeah, yeah. Well, it's easier for me. I thought, because they're grey, and in England, so often the weather is grey as well. They just blend in so much. But using infrareds, you can, grass will go much whiter. You can make sky really dramatic, and
yeah,
you get a much different effect. So I did a book with my wife and on all a lot of the stones in England and Wales, and then we travelled all around Ireland doing them, and gone around Europe shooting them as well. Gets very addictive,
yeah,
it's because they're in brilliant landscapes,
yeah.
and it's a good excuse to go to unusual places anyway,
Yeah,
so.
and they don't talk back. They don't move.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. They give you as much time as you want. So
Cool.
someone saying the T-shirt collab was also great. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's that? Supreme. I don't know. I did a few for Supreme anyway.
Yeah.
Bad Brains that got used for Supreme and RZA and Public Enemy. So yeah, I've done a few T-shirts over the years anyway.
Oh, three of your favorite photos you've taken?
Three of my favorite. Oh my god. Blimey. I guess that Bob Marley one, you know, I mean, this one, that one is
Yeah.
probably would be one of them. Oh yeah, God. Well, it'd have to be a reggae one. I don't know. This actually is another. Uh, I've always liked this one,
Oh, it's
Augustus
beautiful.
Augustus Pablo.
It's beautiful.
Very. I mean, I've always liked shooting live stuff as well as portraits. And then let's see, third one. Oh God. I don't know. That is tough. You'd have to give me a.
Okay.
I'd have
We'll
to.
report back. You can report
Right.
back.
Yeah, I'll report back on that. If it comes to me, I'll let you know.
All right,
Anyway.
cool. Well, I don't, unless you have anything else you want to share, I'm gonna let you go. It's probably pretty late over there. And as I
Yeah. What's the
mentioned, I'm gonna
time?
think,
Quarter to 10 now. Anyway. So
yeah,
yeah. No, it's been good fun. Anyway, it's gone
yeah,
very. It seems to have gone very quickly for me. Anyway. So
yeah,
that's been good.
yeah,
Yeah. No. I mean, I'm still. Yeah. I mean, I guess check the website, you know, and or the Instagram. You know, I've been putting up stuff. I've mainly been putting like reggae and hip hop stuff up, just because
yeah.
people seem to like that. But if anyone has any other suggestions, you know, just email me or drop a Instagram message, and I'll put something different up anyway. So,
Yeah. Um, I'd love to see your bad brain shots. I don't know if you've already posted those.
which one?
Your bad brain shots.
Oh, really? All right. Okay. Yeah. There's one, you know, the one that was on the T-shirt. Do you know that one?
Yeah.
Do you know that? Have you seen that one?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it was only the two of them, and I shot them live a couple of times as well. But all right, yeah, I'll put another Bad Brains one
Okay,
up
cool.
for you.
Awesome. And I'm
All
gonna
right.
figure out how to put these on YouTube so that we can, more people can check it out at their leisure. So,
All right. Yeah, sure.
yeah. So,
I've got a YouTube, mixture of music and travel stuff on YouTube just under my name. So if people want to see, there's a few
perfect.
things and a few exhibitions there as well. Anyway, so all right,
Awesome.
nice one. Anyway, good
Okay.
chatting with you, Angela,
You
and
too.
thanks everyone for sitting up and listening to this rubbish. Anyway,
Have a great night.
yeah, and you. All right,
Okay,
thanks again.
bye.
Bye. Bye.
And now.